Welcome to the Author to Authority podcast. And I have my wonderful co-host, Juanita Wootton-Radko, with me today. And we're going to be talking about the 3 reasons why you need an outline for your book. So welcome, my friend and co-host.
Hello, Kim. So glad to be here on this bright sunny day. Spring is coming. Oh, I'm just glad we got past Groundhog Day. I really have a Bill Murray vibe until we get past that day.
So you need to understand that Juanita and I live in one of the main snow belts in Ontario, Canada. So once you hit about mid-February, you just start to get that glimmer of hope that spring might come someday.
Yeah. It's months away, but it's like we've not entered endless winter after all.
There's a small little light at the end of the tunnel.
Yes.
So one of the reasons why Juanita and I wanted to do this particular podcast is we work with a lot of clients and a lot of people who want to write a book. And they're so confused about what it is that they want to write about. And one of the processes that we walk them through before we even begin their book is to create their outline. And we have found that by creating that outline, there is 3 things that we're going to talk about today that happens that just makes the book writing process, first of all, possible, but second of all, faster and easier. So the first reason why you want to get your book outline done before you start your book is that you gain clarity. So Juanita, I'm going to let you speak to that first, and then I'm going to share a few thoughts on that.
Okay, Kim. Yes. I was thinking about how to best word this, and my first thought was, I feel that it's very easy to fall in love with our ideas. And inside your head, all of your ideas, or at least the way I think, they're all brilliant ideas. My ideas have the biggest fan club in yours truly, at least until they come out of my mouth. And then I can look at them and go, maybe that needs a little bit of massaging to make sense for everybody else. Ideas need space, and getting an outline to give you clarity helps you realize whether your idea is really a book idea or maybe it's just a chapter idea. And what do you really want to talk about? Because I have many interests, and not all of them are necessarily book-worthy interests. At this time, I really do enjoy playing Sudoku, but I don't have enough inside of me to say, here's my Sudoku book of how to solve Sudoku. I mostly try not to cheat with my little program. I mostly do that. And use the hint button is not really worthy of an entire book. So it's great to have an idea, but putting it down on paper allows you to really assess what it is you want to tell people. So maybe I don't want to write a how-to book, but maybe I want to come up with a Sudoku puzzle book. And another thing that on the same topic, maybe you have more than one book in you.
Yes. Yeah, and that's what I went through when I first started writing books. I almost quit because I couldn't figure out what to write. And then, when I finally got all the ideas down, I realized it's because I needed to write more than one.
Yep.
I think the other thing too is that, when you look at why are you writing this book, and our clients write books because they become that foundational marketing tool that they're using to build their business. And so, your outline has to include that. So you have to know who you're writing the book for, what you're writing the book about, why are these people going to want to read it, and you have to be able to write it in such a way, that people take action on the book.
Mm-hmm.
So it can't be here, there, everywhere, not in a logical order. Your thoughts are kind of all over the place, and you've repeated the same main theme about 4 times, like.
Have you ever read a self-published book by someone who felt they didn't need an editor?
Yes. Only
Kind of painful.
Times.
If I'm sure there are people out there who have friends who have been like, oh, I want you to read my new science fiction romance, new vampire novel, and I put a new exciting spin on it, kind of Western, kind of 50 Shades of Grey, and you're like...
And I added a little history to make it interesting.
It's so painful, and you're like, thanks, I think I have a little touch of root canal coming on. I gotta go. There's, oh boy. The reincarnation of I have to send you one about someone has written a book about being a half angel reincarnation of a Viking vampire, and I'm like, I feel like I've been on a terrible roller coaster just by reading the back 2 paragraphs of this book. I shouldn't make fun because that person is probably making an income, but wow. That's not going to help you sell yourself as an authority.
No.
Unless you're looking for other half angel, Viking, vampire, I don't know what. But good luck to that person and their romantic needs.
And that's the thing too, like, your book has to be targeted. And so your outline is there to help make sure that you've targeted this book properly to the right people, and that, the value that you're sharing in the book and the problems that you're solving are the problems that they're facing. Mm-hmm. Because that's how you show your expertise, is when you solve those problems for them. So, point number 2, and we'll delve into this one a little bit deeper, is when you have an outline, it makes the book writing process faster. Mm-hmm. And one thing I've noticed is people say, well, I'm creative, I don't need an outline. Yeah, your book shows it too. I'm sorry, I don't mean that to creative people, but one thing I have found, and I mean, I was just joking there, but one thing I have found, even as a creative person, and both Juanita and I are very creative people, okay? We write, we sing, we play musical instruments, and we act, okay? Mm-hmm. About the only way major area I'm not really creative is don't ask me to draw anything. Can barely match a straight line with a ruler. But both Juanita and I are incredibly creative people.
And something I would just like to address with that, when people kind of go on that, I'm creative, it's a little bit insulting to suggest that creative people don't put a lot of work into being creative. When musicians spend hours in their room practicing scales, practicing etudes, a chef goes by a recipe and they practice that recipe over and over to get the combinations just right. There's a lot of they're not just rolling the dice or just sticking an instrument in front of them and honking on it and hoping it works out to the way they think it will. There is a plan.
Yes.
Musicians have music. Chef has a recipe. You know, there's lots of different examples of creative people. Someone who's knitting a sweater needs a pattern. Otherwise, you don't know if you're going to get a scarf, a dish rag, or, you know, something with 3 sleeves.
Well, and even look at artists, right?
Yeah.
Many artists have natural skills, but they still have to practice. They practice different skills before creating a painting, you know?
Yes.
And there's so much that you need to learn. And I think with, you know, even as a creative person, having that outline, here's one thing I've noticed about creative people is sometimes when you don't have structure as a creative person, it's very easy to get bogged down and discouraged and quit.
Yes.
Because you've got all this creativity, but you don't know how to use it. And it applies to some areas in arts, but especially applies to book writing. You can be as creative as you want, but you know, you're only going to write as your creative juices flow, and then you're stuck because you don't know what else to write.
Mm-hmm.
And it's also not as organized as a well-written book should be.
Yes. Spontaneity is great when you're talking about what are we going to do for dinner, or, you know, where do you want to go on the weekend? But if you want to actually finish your book, having an outline gives you a map, a roadmap from here's where I'm starting from, here's where I want to be, and you can take it and break it down into bite-sized chunks that let you get things done. You know,
Yes.
say for example, knitting that sweater, it gets kind of boring around 3/4 of the way. Well, not 3/4, but before you hit the halfway mark, you might think, this is taking forever.
Yeah.
And it kind of does feel like it's taking forever.
I had one sweater I kind of worked off and on for about, I don't know, 3 years, because I'd work on some of it, I'd get bored, put it down. So it took about 3 or 4 years to complete that one sweater.
And you had a guideline to go by.
Yes.
Whereas and if you don't have a guideline for your book, it's going to take more than 3 or 4 years to finish your book. It might be a never thing. And we don't want to see people in that boat.
Yeah, we want to see people succeed in their book writing. And you know, one thing that we found working with the clients is that by doing the outline first, you actually feel like you've accomplished something.
For sure.
You know, when you're just sitting there staring at that first page, not sure what to write, it's very easy to get discouraged. Whereas if you've got the outline done, all of a sudden it's like you can see the end of the tunnel. You can think, oh, wow, I already know what this book is going to look like. I've just got to get the words down on the page.
And you can also see what doesn't really fit. Like it might have been a little pet topic of yours, but maybe it didn't deserve more than a page or so. Mm-hmm. It's a small subsection of what's your key message.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's important. It might have been something that you struggled with personally, but people go, okay, yeah, I get it. And off we go.
Yeah. And I think that's important too, because your outline also helps you clarify your story and what part of your story that you're going to tell that's going to resonate with the reader, because you want the story that you tell in the book to be related to what you're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right. Point number 3. When you have an outline and you're writing that nonfiction book to build your business, you need to focus on solutions for your clients. And when you have an outline, you can ensure that your book is very solution focused, that you're thinking about, you know, that target market, that perfect reader, and what their needs, wants, desires are. Mm-hmm. So I'll actually just take over for a minute and go into my teacher mode, I'll actually give you a free little section from one of my book writing courses. So when you're writing a book, you're trying to take people from point A to point B. And let's say point A is 0 and point B is 10. And in that process, there's things that they have to do. So in the beginning, when you're starting at point A and trying to get to point B, you're facing a lot of problems. To me, problems is like 1, 2, 3. Needs is like 4, 5, 6. Wants is like 7, 8, and 9, 10 is you've reached your goal. But most people can't get past 1 and 2. So a lot of your book has to be dealing with the problems that they're facing right now. Because if you can't get them past that, they're not going to move forward. And if you can't show them that you can get them past that, they're not going to want to work with you either. So a large percentage of the body of your book is dealing with that first 3, like those problems that they're facing that seem like insurmountable walls that really aren't, because you've already conquered them. So you can show them, hey, they're not walls, they're shadows. They look real, but they're not. But then, once they get started on the path, you then have to take them to the next step. And so that's needs. So, what do they need to do? Who do they need to become? What obstacles do they need to face to make it to the next level? So the majority of your book is problems and needs. Then you want to sprinkle in a little wants. So, wants is they're almost there. So now they want to do something. Okay, here's the next stitch. They want to. And then you've also got to sprinkle in the end goal to show them that the end goal is possible. And one of the main ways that you do that is by telling your story and showing people where you're at now, because you should be at B or C, D, E, F, G, wherever that is, but you need to be past that, and then you show people how to get there. So, that helps you to ensure that you stay solution focused in your outline. Any thoughts, Juanita?
Well, I was thinking about how the outline is your place where you can really polish these ideas, these solutions. And one thing that I think is important as you're talking about the first section being about your problems is that you should be able to share your story and be vulnerable, but you're not still in that place of I am a victim and these are all the jerks who done me wrong, and this is not your place to get revenge on Megan for being such a butthead to you in grade 7. And coincidentally, that's just what I did now on our podcast. Nuts to you, Megan. And oh, that feels so much better. No, no. That is a good point, that sometimes we have to be mentally on the mountaintop when we write our books. And that's what I was talking about with polishing our ideas even more, to get that needs, go from problem to needs, going, yeah, here's the ways that the tools that I needed and the ways that I needed to develop my path. And by 8 to 10, you're going and showing the people who you are leading, here's the mountaintop, we're almost there, look at the view.
Yeah. And you brought up an important point about sharing your story, and it's kind of off topic, but let's talk about it a little bit, because it is an important part of book writing. And you were talking about, how you have to share your story, but you still can't be the victim. And that's really important too. So, when you're sharing your story, you have to share your story that this has happened to you, but you are now emotionally and mentally past that. You can't play the victim. So, vulnerable is sharing, this is what happened to me. Here's how I conquered it. Here's how I healed from it. Here's what I learned from it. Here's how I grew from it. Those kind of statements. Victim is, this happened to me. It's still happening to me. And life's horrible, and don't trust anybody. And so.
There's no hope there. I feel that you can say, like, each day might bring a new challenge, but I'm ready to face it. It's the, you're acknowledging that it's a process, but at the getting stuck down in the mud isn't really helping people.
Yeah.
And that's part of why anyone should want to write a book. I mean, you're helping yourself by sharing this message that's been laid on your heart, whatever that message may be.
Yeah. And you don't have to be completely through it. So like for some people have been abused. And, that's not something, yes, you can heal from it, but it's always a part of your life. But it doesn't mean you're a victim anymore. So, like, I'm not saying that you have to be like 100% and whatever, but you don't want to be sharing about things that you're really still bogged down in the middle of.
Right. It's,
if you can't do it
in a very nice way, writing a book is therapeutic, but the book that is positioning you as an authority is not your therapy.
Yeah, like if you're writing your memoirs as a way of healing, that's a different story. So that's a different type of book. But what we're talking about here is, a nonfiction book that you're using to provide value, show your expertise, and it becomes that positioning tool so people see you as that go-to person. So you don't want to position yourself as a victim. You want to position yourself as the victor.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, my friend, do you have any other thoughts you want to share with us before we start to close up today?
I wish everybody a happy day and start writing, my friends. Write that outline today.
So we just want to remind you that here at RTI Publishing, we love to help people to ghostwrite, produce, and publish their signature books. So if that's something that you're interested in, please feel free to go to www.rtipublishing.com, and on the home page you will see a Get a Quote button. And if you fill out that form, we'll contact you, and you can book a free 30-minute session with myself just to talk about your book project and what it is that you want to do. And we'll see if we're a good fit for each other. If not, you will leave the call having a lot more clarity and some ideas to make your book writing process faster. And I'll even help you think of a couple solutions that you can put in your book. So this has been Kim Thompson-Pinder with co-host Juanita Wootton-Radko, and we've been on the Author to Authority podcast. And have a great day, everyone, and we will see you on the next episode. Bye.
Bye.